We've done
maybe,
it, chat.
Maybe. Awesome. We're there. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Professional streamers.
So
everybody.
redo that whole thing. All right.
Zero. No, you'll just not get to hear the most awesome opening that has ever been done by human beings in the history of the time.
I heard it.
I was there for it.
I heard it as well in my heart.
And chat, this is a tribute to that.
That's right. This is not that. This is the tribute. And if you get that reference, 20 extra points for Gryffindor.
I mean, I think we got to give that to Slytherin, don't we?
Do people really give things to Slytherin? Slytherin just kind of takes it, right?
Well, I mean, we're dealing with mayonnaise in that reference.
Speaking of mayonnaise, happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. That's right. Time to pour. If you're a American white dude, it's time to pour mayonnaise down your sink. That's how we celebrate it.
All right. Anyway, we're talking about Tolkien. Clan had a whole big thing where, not tacos.
It was awesome. I started out chat and I said Cocklaw was my favorite Tolkien character because that's another reference that you'll get in the future. Diz thought it's hilarious. Buck thought it was slightly amusing. I said hello very entertainingly.
I complained about my achy body parts and the shitty weather outside.
That's right. I said Diz had a mouse rat and a tool hat, which he does. Also, if you haven't noticed it, Diz always has a tool hat. It's his thing.
I'm trying to start a trend myself.
That's true. You got a hat that says Buck.
I just need to get another K embroidered right here.
That's true. That's true.
And then we'll be good.
And I've got my shirt that this is what I wear to work, Chad. So I'm wearing my work shirt. So. Now you know. So where are we going to start, gentlemen? We got books, we've got movies, we've got shows that may be appearing on Amazon. Where do we begin? Because I'm going to assume you both know more about this than I do. Because I've watched the movies and the cartoon Hobbit thing from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's all of it. That's all.
The question is, have you seen the 6-hour movies?
I have not watched the extended editions.
I'm talking about this extended director cut.
Yeah, they're on HBO right now.
Yeah, they're on HBO Max now, so you can watch them. I have not watched them yet. I've only watched. I went to the theaters. To the theaters. I went to all of them. I went to the theater and watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's the regular cuts, and that's the only ones. And I bought them on DVD in widescreen because I like future proofing, chat. And that's the only ones that I've watched.
I have the Lord of the Rings in the book collection.
I do too.
That unfolds, then you get like 2 extra discs of all of their extra content where like Orlando Bloom skydiving out of a plane and all this other mess.
I would think the movie people would not let him do that.
Legolas over here, death from above.
Oh, the actor that played Gimli, he had a chair that they had to take up on the mountain so he could sit in the chair in between takes.
That's because he is a sir.
Yeah, he always has that in his contract that he has to take his chair wherever he goes. Also, he was awesome as Maximilian Arturo in Sliders.
Yes, the professor.
Yes.
Okay, so I've read Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion. I'm currently reading on the Lost Tales, but that's all I've read. Now, the Silmarillion is a tough read. There are a lot of names, cities that are just made up off the top of his head in there that have multiple syllables.
Well, I mean, the guy created a language.
It's tough to read. Yeah.
I mean, he was a complicated man. Also, in the Lost Tales, is that one of the ones that his son helped finish after he died?
Yes.
He went in and kind of finished it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a lot of unfinished works that his son kind of came in and helped complete and publish.
Yeah.
So
There's no way it was as weird and twisted as his daddy, though.
no,
that's true.
no.
Well, the thing about it is, and I always heard this, maybe you two can confirm this or not, but I always heard that Tolkien wrote this, The Hobbit and everything, because he felt that specifically Britain, if not the English speaking world, was a civilization without really a mythology. The Greeks had a mythology, Romans had a mythology, but the English did not. And he kind of wrote The Hobbit to kind of create a mythology for England, basically. Have you guys heard that, or am I just pulling that right out of my ass?
I had not heard that, but it sounds reliable.
I like it.
When I think of English history, I think of Robin. So that's what I think of.
Right, that's what you think of. Like with English, you think of Robin Hood. You think of stuff like maybe written from like William Shakespeare.
The Three Musketeers, like the whole Musketeer line, where they're fighting for France and Britain and everything else. But it's never something weird like what Tolkien wrote.
The weird part is, it's Middle Earth, but it's our Earth,
right?
But it's like before the age we know of, and so that was supposed to be the mythology there, kind of like what happened before us, modern man.
I'm pretty sure that if they tangled with any of the other pantheons, that Sauron would have got smoked.
Possibly. Zeus don't take no shit from nobody.
You've got the Celtic mythology.
Also, he's too busy banging everything.
That is true. He's got more freaking demigod children than anybody to date.
That's true. There's Hercules and Cocklava.
Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher. Yep. The Greek god of punk.
So, on the show, we usually complain about stuff, and right now we haven't complained about a damn thing. We're singing
here's
praises.
What I will complain about. Here's a complaint.
We complained at the beginning, Diz, that you didn't have audio on your stream.
That's true.
They couldn't hear us complaining.
That.
They couldn't hear us complaining about that.
Okay, here's my first complaint. Why did Peter Jackson feel the need to make The Hobbit 3 movies when it could have easily been?
We just got rated.
2? Oh, we
I
did.
don't know.
Lady Chaotic, Lady Dr. Diz.
Thanks for the raid.
Thanks, Lady Chaotic.
Welcome, everybody. We're a bunch of old dudes who like to sit around and complain about stuff on the front porch here.
That's true. That is what we do.
There's the shout out.
So, I think, and it's just speculation, but I think that he enjoys trying to make things in 3 parts, regardless of what the hell it is.
No, Peter Jackson, just trilogies. Yeah.
Now, that being said, as in depth as The Hobbit could be, I would say 2 should have been max. That way he didn't have to feel rushed to slam everything into 1. But that 3rd one should not have existed.
Well, he ran out of material in The Hobbit and had to bring in parts of the Silmarillion.
Right.
To make the 3rd movie.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. He should have ended it 2, left the shit out that didn't belong there to begin with, and then everything would have fit into 2, no problem.
Also, are you like me? Do you think that The Lord of the Rings is better than The Hobbit?
I think the story is better than The Hobbit. Some of the fighting in Hobbit is better because they had more material and resources that they could pull from when they first made Lord of the Rings. Stuff advanced a little further. But what beats poor Boromir taking 3 arrows to the upper body and still fighting freaking Uruk-hai until Aragorn showed up?
He shows up usually right in the nick of time, but he's right in the nick of time of just keeping him alive for like 5 more minutes.
Right.
That's all he
Just long
does.
enough for him to have been like, I would have
Yeah.
followed you to the end. Well,
Yeah.
you followed us to the end of your life.
Poor Sean Bean. Pour one out for Sean.
I mean, let's face it. They did a study on this. He has not lived in like any movie or TV show he has ever been a part of.
Listen, if Sean Bean or Michelle Rodriguez is in a movie, they're going to die. It's guaranteed. If they put them in the same movie, if they were the 2 stars of a movie, they would not survive the movie.
And if they do, the world is coming to an end.
Yeah, it's like it's in their contract. They have to die in it.
Yeah.
It's just what they do. They're professional at it. When he was 006 in Goldeneye, dies.
I mean, legitimately,
twice,
I think they said there may have only been like a movie and one show that he didn't die in at all.
Yeah.
Like, and everything else he's ever been in, they kill him off.
Yeah. Goldeneye, dead. Lord of the Rings, dead.
Game of Thrones, dead.
Ain't got no
Spoiler.
Yeah, they severed it completely.
So you asked about comparing The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but I can't compare those two because it's like comparing 2 completely different things. Now, if you look at the movies, they appear to be the same thing because what they did was turn The Hobbit into an action movie. They turned it into like they're like superheroes or big warriors fighting. That's not, if you read the book, that's not how it happens.
Right.
What happens is there's maybe one good fighter among them, really, and they basically stumble through. Yeah, and they stumble through the whole thing, barely surviving the entire time. So that's what I don't like about the Hobbit movie. I like it as a movie. I can sit down and watch it and enjoy it, but I can't sit down and compare it to the book and say that it's the same thing. And then when I compare the books of The Lord of the Ring and The Hobbit is a whimsical adventure, and Lord of the Rings is an epic like story. It's two completely different things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they took the Hobbit book, which should have been more along the lines of like Snow White and the 7 Dwarves type deal with the way the dwarves were, and then flash them into like, okay, this is Mulan, you're on the front lines, get going. Like that's what they turned the movie into compared to the book.
Yeah.
And then if you watch The Hobbit, they put Legolas in there, and technically Legolas would have been around, but he's not in the book.
Right.
And they actually go to his father's kingdom, Mirkwood, and technically he could have been there. But, and them adding him in, not that bad. It added that action sequence where he's jumping on barrels and he
balancing on dwarf heads.
Somehow he is more powerful than he was in Lord of the Rings. That happens later. Like he's just how he's better before. It's like now that when I watched Lord of the Rings, I'm like, he got worse. Like he's not as good as he once was.
It's like he shot his shot in Hobbit, and then he got to Lord of the Rings, was like, I just can't do this anymore, guys.
I got one good battle in me, and then after that, I'm done.
They had to add so many characters to The Hobbit to make it into this action movie. They had to add Legolas. They asked Viggo to play Aragorn, and he said he refused to because he said Aragorn wasn't in the book.
Right.
It's at least what was said. And then they added the female elf, which she is not in anything.
Ariel.
They just created they created her, and then they had to create the white orc that was chasing them. Yeah, because there's not a group of orcs chasing them throughout the book.
Old ass hawk.
Yeah.
And Borg. They brought Borg in, which was Ashawk's lieutenant, that's supposed to be having this big showdown with Legolas in the movie. And that's not in the book.
No. It was a good fight.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. But
hey, they also brought in Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, I appreciated that one.
Yep.
Yeah. That was well deserved.
So, what do you guys think? I mean, about I know there's a lot of additions and stuff, but what's your guys' opinions about characters or events in the books that have been either completely removed or have been modified to where they happen in different orders or in completely different circumstances from the books? Like I know, like Tom Bombadil, right?
He should have been there.
Name.
Yeah,
he
should have been
supposed
there.
he's a part of the story, completely removed from the movies.
And he's a big part involving the 4 hobbits.
Right. So what is your take on that?
I understand why they took it out, because it doesn't play into the actual storyline, completely.
Mhm.
The character, I think, comes from an earlier work that Tolkien was working on, and he pulled it into this, and he never really defines who Tom is, or his wife, or anything like that. But people always assume that was God, like that in that world, that was the creation God, is who that was. So it would have been interesting to see, and everybody was waiting to see it, but then they just skipped over it. Which they skipped over a couple parts in doing that, because I think they actually end up like in a situation with some like whites or something like that, and they have to be saved, and so, but all that gets removed in the movies for, I guess, to save time. So
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't care about saving time in The Hobbit.
no,
that's true. That's true. Well, I guess he thought like maybe he had a clear picture of I want to do one book a movie, and then after that experience and what he had to cut out, maybe he in the Hobbit he was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Because do you think any of the original Lord of the Rings movies could have been multiple movies, like kind of like the last Harry Potter, where they took the last book and separated it into 2 movies, a part 1 and a part 2? Do you think any of the original trilogy Lord of the Rings movies could be a part 1 and a part 2?
the first one could have kind of been, but the second part of the movie would have sucked, because the only place to have ended would have been when Gandalf falls into darkness. You could have ended it there, but at that point, all you have left is they go to Lothlorien, they sail down the river, and then the party splits, and that's it.
Never
So the
split the party,
second,
chat.
That's right.
the
Never
second
split the
movie would
party.
have been awful. So, I don't know that they could have realistically, unless they went in and added a bunch of characters. They could have done
been
that.
stretching to extend the 2 towers also.
You would have been, yep.
Because I mean, you could have had a heck of a ending at Helm's Deep, but where you just split it, the second movie would have just been the fight at Helm's Deep, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, do you think the extended editions fix that problem? Do you think that's the version they should have put out in the theater?
No, because if they'd have put it in theater, you'd have had the issue of, the whole point of the extended version was to make more money. We'll put in everything we cut out, we'll sell it separately, get more money, more revenue coming in from the thing. If they'd have done it off the bat, you'd have had some people that went to the theaters and were like, yeah, let's watch this. I've never read or seen anything about it. And some of them may have got bored towards the end of that movie. The real fans would have been all excited and been there the whole damn time, no matter what. Even peed their pants if they had to see every stitch of what was on the scrreen.
Yeah, they had to have an intermission.
I think pretty much after Titanic, the movie companies were like, okay, we're 3 hours is a limit. That's all we're going to do. Nothing more than a 3-hour, 3.5-hour movie. That's it. We're not going to put in, because if you put in, like Buck, you said you had like the extended director's editions or whatever. So each one of those movies is what, at least 4 hours long now?
3.5 roughly. Yeah. And then it cuts off and it says, please insert next disc.
I had a Stargate DVD that did that, except it was on both sides. So in the middle of the movie, it would say, please flip the disc.
Ooh, I had a multi-disc DVD player that would just it had
Oh,
you put
look.
3 discs in and could swap it.
Who's fancy, chat? We know
I
who
mean-
had the money back in the day.
I mean, you're talking about, having those kind of movies and how long it was. Like the movie Pearl Harbor. When you bought it on VHS, it came with 2 in the same box.
I had the 2 VHS version of Titanic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Titanic
it's
and
still
Pearl
sealed.
Harbor were like, you go to that movie, you better be ready to hang on and watch a movie.
Yeah. I don't think that if they'd released a longer version of those movies, I don't think one, it would have done as well, and two, no, it would just been like this. We've had to sit there for 4.5 hours. Don't go watch this movie. Wait till it comes out on video.
I
And
heard
then
that
the other 2 movies would have been just direct to video releases.
I heard that your VHS copy of Titanic, every time you put it in, it was stuck on that one scene where it was right when they were doing the drawing, and couldn't figure out why that tape just kept messing up and getting stuck right there. So
I know it's very weird. It is weird. Just as soon as I put it in, it was like, draw me like one of your French girls.
But yeah, as far as that goes, I think the reason they left a lot of good scenes on the cuts out for the theatrical was because they knew good darn well we're going to make the extended, and the true fans are going to be sitting here watching, going, "Why wasn't this in there? Why wasn't this in there?" And then they're like, "Oh, by the way, here comes the extended edition with all of the stuff that we removed," and then all the fans are like, "Oh, finally!" And then they got it, and like Tom wasn't in there, and they're like, well, this might be a shitty movie because the very first thing that should be happening is not happening. But then they got all the other content and they're like, okay, well, it turned into a good movie.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched the newest ones with I've watched the Fellowship with the super extended edition, whatever it's called, and I've watched part of the Two Towers. I haven't watched Return of the King yet on it. But there's a lot in Return of the King that they stripped out. There's a lot right at the end where they're at the Black Gates, and there's a lot that plays out there that I guess wouldn't translate well to film. In the book, you could read it and see what was going on, but there was like little battles, and there was back and forth between what was he called, the
Aragorn
voice
and the speaker of Sauron.
Yeah, speaker. So there's all kinds of stuff going on right there, but they just kind of took it down to where the gates open and they get circled. And that was it.
Yeah, like in the extended, Aragorn takes his head.
Yeah.
So they took that in the book and actually
that's
have
good.
it in the extended. So that little confrontation
happy to
actually
see
goes
that.
down before they're fully circled.
Nice. Also, side note, can we stop for a second and just let everybody know that Saruman, the gentleman that played him, Christopher Plummer, was a certified badass in real life and could have killed all of them with his pinky.
That's true.
Just let that out. And if you don't know about that, please
They watered him down, chat.
Please Google Christopher Plummer and read about it, because holy shit. Also, the only member of the Lord of the Rings cast that actually spoke to Tolkien and was in a death metal band as an old man.
My favorite, though, is when he looks at Peter Jackson and says, how many people have you killed with a sword?
Yeah, because he's killed at least one.
I mean, that's when you know that you got a hardcore dude on your set. Like, how many have you killed with a sword? He's like, that's not how they sound.
That's true. It's not the sound that you make when you get stabbed to death with a sword. Also, dude was Dracula. I mean, that's up there. So yeah, certified badass. If you don't know about Christopher Plummer, please Google him. You'll be like, holy shit. How is this man? He spoke 5 languages fluently in his head. He just, like, I don't know. The dude is just I don't know. He's the next Jesus. I don't know. He's crazy.
So we've got some new stuff coming out for Tolkien and, not Lord of the Rings, but Tolkien content, we'll say, Middle Earth content. We've got the series coming out on Amazon, right?
Right. And it takes place in the Second Age, right?
Second Age.
Yeah,
Yep.
before the movies.
Everything that we experience is in the Third Age, in the movies, The Hobbit, and the Lord of the Rings. So this.
Go ahead.
You probably don't know this. First age is like when the world is created and all the gods are just kind of roaming around and doing the thing. The second age is where you have some people start to go over to Middle Earth from the Undying Lands and stuff like that. And you have Numenor, which is where you get the line of kings and stuff like that. It's like an island out in the middle of the sea. And
kind of like Avalon.
Yeah, and you've got the
Now, I
creation
don't know
of rings.
Numenor, but I remember Numa.
Numa.
Yeah, from back in the day. I remember that.
And Zumba. You remember Zumba?
I do remember Zumba. Yes. I think I worked out in like 8th grade to a Zumba video once in PE class.
Oh. So that's what you got in this one. You're gonna see Sauron, which we've seen in his big, scary gothic black, metal, armor and his big mace and stuff like that. And he's reaching out to get people. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," and just smacking the shit out of like 10 guys.
But we get to see him as a humanoid.
We get to see him as like an elf like character, yeah. So apparently he's supposed to be like super smoking hot or something. So
which I didn't know that is. So is he elvish? Like in real life? Was he elvish before he became a big floating eyeball?
I think he is. I don't know that he. No, I think he's more like what Gandalf is.
So he's one of the angel people.
I think. I don't think he's an elf.
Mithindrian is what you're thinking of. Mithindrian. That's what Gandalf is.
That's what I was trying to say today.
They're like spirits.
For some reason I called them Miras or something like that, but I knew it was something with an M and kind of
And he only gets called that like one time in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's when Lady Gladriel is talking to him.
Because I know Gandalf.
He goes by the name Mithrandy or something like that. Which is what they call
Mithrandy.
Mithrander or Mithrand. It's what the I think the hobbits call him that or something, or one of the races call him that.
The Lady Gladriel calls him that when she's talking to him. Mithrandir in the cage in The Hobbit, and then talks to him again in Lord of the Rings when she or at the end of The Hobbit when she reaches out and tells him that she will always be there if he ever needs her.
Right, but didn't Gandalf and her have a thing back in the day?
I
mean, in the movies it seems like it, but
I mean, if they did, it would have been it would have been in Second Earth.
It was in one of the extra books that came
out.
Maiar.
Yeah, they're Maiars is what they're called. Maiar.
That they had a thing when Gandalf first came around.
I mean, it's not in the books.
But then she had to marry some other guy.
Maybe in some of these Lost Tales and stuff like that I haven't read yet.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not in the Silmarillion. Not in The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings. So
yeah.
Now the movies.
So here's my question. Okay, so the new show is taking place in the Second Age. Sauron's going to be there. So where are they pulling this content from? Or is this just being completely made up?
This has to be made up, unless Tolkien just had it written down somewhere. Now he does talk about the creation of the rings.
Yeah.
He does that in the
beginning.
Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
But it's not in the Silmarillion talking about. I think he might talk about Morgoth in the Silmarillion, but there's definitely not the creation of the rings in the Silmarillion.
So what do you guys think about that? About people creating basically new content in that world?
It doesn't really bother me because I mean, if you want more, it has to be created by somebody else at this point. Otherwise, it's
Right.
just set in stone, and that's all you get.
Right. Well, I'm sure that there are people out there that are kind of like, I guess I'll call them Tolkien purists. They're like,
Sure,
unless
yeah.
it's Tolkien or maybe like his son or something like that, they won't think that it'll be actual content. And I'm sure there's other people like us. It's like, well, as long as they stick to what was kind of the framework, then it's fine.
Yeah, like if they do this series and the 9 rings to the humans and the 7 rings to the dwarves and the 3 rings to the elves, if they don't go to the people they were supposed to go to that was named, then they butchered the entire series and there would be no reason to watch it. They better name every one of them correctly.
Yeah.
Or they're going to have so many pissed off people that they completely deviated from what was already there building up to it.
It's true.
Listen, I figure as soon as the first episode drops and people have had a chance to watch it, there will be 100 people that is like the comic book guy from The Simpsons that will be like on Twitter going, "Excuse me, sir. Clearly in this episode, you are not referencing the correct script." Also from the extended tales, the goblet he drank from was clearly purple, and you're using a gold goblet, which is not historically accurate to the Second Age of Middle Earth. I'm expecting that.
You'll have that. You'll definitely have that.
Yeah, because you've always got the not on my fandom, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything written in the Second Age a lot. Now the Silmarillion does touch on a lot of events in the Second Age. You have more of your like superhero type of characters, really overpowered people in the Second Age. While in the Third Age it starts to die off, and your really powerful people are more secluded, like Galadriel and stuff like that. She doesn't show her power.
So the Third Age is the age before the modern age of Earth, right? Before our Earth.
Kind of.
I'm guessing, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
I would say third is either right before it or it goes halfway into probably fourth age before it starts to fully transition.
And see, I always thought the Silmarillion was after the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So
it's more like a history.
Is actually, so it's like a history of Middle Earth.
It actually talks about the First Age and the Second Age. It talks about the creation of the 3 Silmarillions, the crystals.
Like in Final Fantasy.
Not the same. No, not exactly. Not
and
elemental.
Golbez steals them all.
Damn it, Golbez.
And he's chased permanently by Cecil.
Get Buck off the call right now. Sorry, chat. We're having to cancel the episode. We got to find a new third. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone for that. But there's just some shit that don't stand.
That's how you trigger clan chat.
Well, we had a good run.
Yeah. We've made it 8 episodes. It's more than most. So, damn it, Cecil. Jesus. Anyway, before we were rudely interrupted. So if the Silmarillion is a prequel, is the Silmarillion, but where do we get like what happened to the other characters? Like we know,
I'd say the Silmarillion is
Aragorn
kind of a running catalog, right, Diz? would be more what the Silmarillion is.
And then like what happened to Pippin and all of them,
It,
and when they
it
died.
talks the Silmarillion, I don't know, it's kind of disjointed. It's like a bunch of short stories all kind of shoved into one book. So it's all over the fucking place. But it does talk about, the creation, of all the elves and all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure it talks about, it's been a while since I read it, but it talks about, the first men coming over and stuff like that. It talks about, there's some stories about, I want to say his name's, it starts with a B, and he goes up and he has to fight these Balrogs. There's just multiple Balrogs. So he has to go fight one, which is what Gandalf fights, down in the Mines of Moria.
It wasn't Beorn, was it? He's a badass.
I think it is. It is.
He's the one. He's the shifter that shifts into the bear. He's the one that was enslaved by the.
It's a
goblins.
That'd be horrible.
His race got enslaved and was supposed to fight for them.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah, it talks a lot about the gods, but it doesn't talk about your actual like Morgoth and stuff like that. It talks about more of the lesser gods, kind of beneath them. Nah, it does talk about the gods. I remember it talks. It's almost like their pantheon and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to go back and read all that stuff because it talks about Isildur and what's his name? I'm trying to figure out that it's like a love story between this man and woman, and he has to like go fight like a Balrog or something like that to prove his love because her father won't let her have anything to do with him or something. So
it's harsh.
There's just it's hard to remember all that stuff. I don't know how Stephen Colbert does it. Like it's just so much stuff.
Yeah, that is true. So, okay, so here's something that may get you pissed off. So it's two parts, an A and a B, and it kind of goes back with what we were talking about before with people adding new content. Okay. First one. Would you be upset or how would you feel about somebody making additional movies in the Tolkien universe?
Like stuff beyond the Third Age, or
either that or stuff from the Second Age, or even before they take like they take the character you were talking about, right, that has to go and kill the Balrog, and they make like a they decide to expand on that, and they make like a Hercules and his trials, or or the labors, and they make a movie kind of like that, but it's this guy set in Middle Earth, and then you get to see a few characters that or whatever there as well. How would you feel about that?
I mean, if it's characters like I think his name it's Beren, I do believe. Beren and Luthien. Luthien, I think, is the female in the story. If they made a story about that, there's not really a lot out there, so that would be fine. But if like they say they took Frodo and went on another adventure after the Lord of the Rings, I might be like,
kind of impossible. What did Frodo do in the Undying Lands? He didn't die.
Like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Then like if you took Legolas and just had like an adventure with Legolas, I mean, it would be visually entertaining, but Legolas as a character, even in the book, I don't think has a lot of depth to it. So, to be honest, all the depth in the book seems to be focused around the hobbits and Aragorn, and some of your elf characters. So,
what say you now?
Honestly, I don't really feel like they could pull much from it without it being like a side story to the movie. Now, if they went before that and kind of, followed the journey of the kings that had the rings and how they became the ring race. Okay. What happened to the damn dwarves that had the 7 rings?
Nobody knows.
Did they turn into something? Like they could make something over that and potentially try to tell the story of what happened to the 7 kings and the 9 humans before they became race. But the only ones you ever really see are the 3 elves that had rings.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the 9 race, but you don't know how or what converted them to that. Like I said, the dwarves, 7 rings to the dwarf lords. That's cool. Where the fuck did they go?
Yeah, and during that time, you're gonna have they go to like 7 like different dwarf kingdoms, I do believe. So when we're experiencing the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, there might be one dwarf kingdom that we know of that is still a viable thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we see any dwarfs besides the party that goes on the
We see
adventure in the
Dane's
Hobbit.
team from the Iron Mountains in the Hobbit, the ones
We
that
do.
show up at the end
At the battle.
final
That's
fight.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's the only dwarves you see, other than when you see Thorin and them fleeing the Misty Mountain to start with. Once
Yeah,
they
so
disperse there, the only time you ever really see dwarves other than the cast is when Dane shows up to fight alongside them.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, just like I said, not knowing the books at all and watching the movies, to me it seemed like in when the Return of the King concludes and everything, it's almost like the dwarves are a dying race, and there's not many of them left. It's like
the elves too.
there's like Gimli and 3 other dwarves, and that's all the dwarves that are left in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the elves are packing up and leaving at the end of Return of the King. They're packing up and leaving to go to the Undying Lands. They're leaving Middle Earth completely. So it's just humans and hobbits.
Yeah.
Is all that's left in Middle Earth.
And goblins.
And that was me. That's what I took out of it. It's like, the dwarves are dying and the elves are leaving. And that's it.
We all know the story. At the end of the Lord of the Rings, the Eagles form America, and that's where we go from there.
There you go. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Now we understand why the eagle is so prominent.
They lay an egg and out pops George Washington.
He's a half eagle.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, man. I mean, they completely shortchanged the dwarves through both movies. And everybody's like, well, yeah, but they have the dwarves as the main cast in The Hobbit. Yeah. Where's the rest of them? Where did Thorin's people end the fuck up? Where Dane's the only group that's going to come help, because he had a meeting of all of the dwarf leaders, and Dane's the only one showed up. Why don't the other dwarves care?
No. So what I'm getting is that you guys are fine as long as it expands the mythology that's already there, fills in the gaps of what's there, and that's cool. I think that's a good idea too. Solve some of the mystery, right?
I wouldn't extend past what happened in Return of the King.
Make a canon. Like, this is the canon answer. This is what happened to all these people or whatever. Yeah, and I don't think so either. I think doing like a 4th age or whatever would just be weird because nobody cares. You're just watching Middle Earth die and turn into our time. And who wants that? Our time sucks.
I mean, you're watching the hobbits get taller, right? Because Merry and Pippin drinking that imp water and then taking everybody else over there to get taller. So it's like, oh, we just don't have hobbits anymore.
The hobbits are signing up for their 401ks and
exactly
buying a mid-sized Kia.
It's a Prius. They're driving a Prius.
Sounds like a good deal. If they're getting a Kia, they got a good deal out of it. All right. So part 2 of that same question is, and in my soul, I know it's eventually going to happen. You guys probably think it's eventually going to happen too, because that's just the way the Hollywood works in the modern times. But remakes.
Well,
are you for it? Are you against it? And how far away from the original movies do you think they need to wait before they even attempt to remake it?
well, now Hobbit already did a remake.
True.
It went from cartoon to live action.
Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
did too, because there was a Lord of the Rings cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was lesser known, but
Right.
yeah, it was there.
but I mean, there's characters in any movie that when they go to remake it, they can't find a character to even come close. Like Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, I don't see them ever finding a better Strider.
Be one.
But like Gimli, all the main ones are awesome for the characters they cast. I really don't know how much further they could go with that to make it a better remake.
Can they remake an epic movie like that? I mean, not that they can't do it, but I mean, the amount of money that you'd have to spend to remake that. I mean,
it would get very expensive.
Well, usually when they remake a tentpole movie, like everybody is just an historic movie that everybody knows, right? Like Spartacus or Ben Hur or Gone with the Wind, something like that. A tentpole movie that is just everybody. Usually it falls flat on its face, and everybody's like, it's not as good as the original. It's not as good as the original. Or they're tied. People's emotions are tied with those characters, but they also tie those characters with that cast and that frozen snapshot in time. So
like RoboCop.
Right, exactly. Like RoboCop 3 pissed me off because they recast RoboCop. So to me, it's not real. It's not real. It's not my RoboCop.
And he could run through rice paddies at Mach 4.
That's the remake RoboCop. Yeah. Oh my god, we won't even talk about that. Oh my god, holy shit. So, if they remake the movies, there's going to be a totally new cast. They may get one or two people from the originals to come on as like a stand-in character or something like that. But I mean, more like the main characters are all going to be recast, redone. The production values may go up, better CGI and stuff like that than what they could do back in the day. But I mean, is that really a reason to remake it? Or do you think if they remake the prime example, if they remake the Lord of the Rings trilogy, should they go in and redo it as far as in like add in Tom Bombadil, add that part of the story back in that was missing from the original movies? Or how do you think that would work? Are you in favor of a remake? Or what's your feelings about it?
I'm not against them trying to remake anything, but everybody's going to be super critical about it. Like your younger generation that didn't get to experience it won't be as critical on it, but everyone before that experienced it, lived through it, I mean, it has to live up to. I mean,
the bar's high.
Do you remember watching The Two Towers and that scene where Gollum starts talking to himself? Like nobody was ready for that. Nobody was prepared for that, and that's out of the book. He did talk to himself. So I mean, they just took it and put it on screen, and I don't know if you could do that better. Because what's the actor's name that plays Gollum?
Andy Serkis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's in everything now.
Yeah,
and he's just wonderful. Can they find another Andy Serkis?
Yeah, he also did Darth Maul, didn't
he? No. Darth Maul is the guy who played the lizard guy in the first X-Men movie.
One that played Toad in
Toad
X-Men.
Yeah, that
is
and the one that's guarding George Lucas's ranch in Fanboys. And he's using the fake lightsaber, and I'm like, you used that in a movie.
All right, speaking of George Lucas and building on the remake thing, what if Peter Jackson in like 10 years comes out with a Lord of the Rings special edition like George Lucas did Star Wars?
I mean, he's gonna make a bunch of money.
Yes. Especially if he does just Lord of the Rings. Because if he throws Hobbit into that, people will buy it. But he'd be better off if he just did Lord of the Rings.
Are you going to buy it? Will you go and purchase the movies?
Oh yeah,
Probably.
Sadly enough, I own 4 copies of each movie.
That's a lot.
Because you were talking about reboots and remakes. I would love to see a remake of the Hobbit movie. Not that it's not a good trilogy. It's good for the movies. But I would like to see something more accurate to the book and the feel of the book, really, because like I said, it's a whimsical adventure, and that those words mean something to me. Like it means like it feels like it's fun, and then there's all of a sudden danger, and then they completely forget about the danger and they move on to the next dangerous thing. Like they walk into the woods, get lost, get captured by fucking spiders. The only reason they get saved is because Bilbo has the ring and puts it on and is able to sneak up and cut them free. So that's what I want to see. Lord of the Rings, I don't know if they can do better.
Yeah.
And I like the casting in The Hobbit. I mean, I really liked all the cast.
Yeah, I think it did
well. Just, I didn't think it needed all the extras that they put into it. But they did make a lot of money, so.
I think it's funny that so many people are upset or agitated that Beorn was in The Hobbit. And I know why he got put in, but he wasn't part of the book. The shapeshifter isn't really a vital thing that fights in the War of the Five Armies and all this stuff. But he was a Tolkien character. And they felt like he'd be a good fit here.
He did fight in the Battle of the Five Armies. I think I remember that he was one of the ones that was in there fighting. Seems like the Eagles or something brought him in or something.
Well, in the movie, that's what happened.
Look that up.
The movie, the eagle flies over the top of the orcs and lets go, and you see Beorn free falling, and then shifts into a bear and lands on like 6 of them and starts mauling the hell out of the unit he landed on. And I'm like, I don't remember that happening, but okay. Yeah. And he's a couple, he's like 1,000 years old or whatever. He lived for a long time, but he only lived in the middle in Third Age. And so I was like, they kind of threw him in there. And, when you get to his house, there's a bee like the size of your freaking head flying around his house and stuff. And you're like, where the devil the bees get so big?
He is in the book. I just looked it up because I do remember them. And I remember him fighting in the battle at the end. I don't remember if the Eagles bring him in or not, but he is there fighting. I can't remember. I remember watching the cartoon as a kid, and I remember like seeing the armies like clash. I can't remember if he's in the cartoon, but he definitely is in the book. The cartoon's been a long time ago. I have it, but I haven't rewatched it in a while. So,
yeah.
But I mean, could you imagine being in formation and you look up and you see just a body falling at you? And you're like, oh, we're so going to spear him. And then like a 3-ton bear is dropping on your face. Like, what do you do?
It's the bear coming out. Almost fucking die.
Because I mean, even Ashok was scared of that bear. Like they had every orc and warg and everything terrified of this dude. So when they saw him free falling into the middle of this, they had to be crapping their pants.
I'm scared of flying bears and anybody named Ashok.
In the book, I don't remember them talking about how Keely and Feely die. But I know that at least one of them dies in the book, maybe both of them. And because in the movie they have this big showdown, where they're like all fighting and each of them are getting killed off and stuff. But I can't remember if that's how, because I think it just there's the battle that happens and afterwards Bilbo goes back in and talks to them, and a bunch of them didn't make it, of the dwarfs. So I can't remember. I have to go back and check that.
Yeah. So, anything else that you gentlemen would like to harp on with Lord of the Rings?
Has anybody played the games? I haven't played. I don't think I've played one of the games. I
played all
the MMO.
Lord of the Rings.
I tried the MMO.
How was the MMO?
It was bad.
Was it bad?
Yes.
It's still around.
They eventually converted it to a free-to-play MMO, and now it's kind of like Neverwinter, but with hobbits.
I played all the ones that mirrored the movies on PlayStation 2.
I was gonna say, I think I've heard that the best one is like the Two Towers or Return of the King on PlayStation 2.
I love
like the best one
because they started with Fellowship and Two Towers, and it's like the more they made, the better their mechanics became. Yeah. Better motion control, better fight sequences, and then Return of the King was awesome. Yeah. And then they brought out The Hobbit, and they went a little off on that one because they made The Hobbit more of a cartoony feel, but still tried to have the same fighting and battle mechanics as like the trilogy. And I'm like, why didn't y'all just draw him more realistic like everybody else?
What about the Lego Lord of the Rings?
I played some of those.
I've played both.
I don't know that they're just Lego games. It's a bunch of puzzles is what it is.
Yeah. They definitely follow the movies.
They do
on those two.
Yeah.
So, Clan, I have a question.
All right.
Are you upset that in Tolkien's universe there seems to be only like in what we would consider playable classes, elves, humans, halflings, dwarfs? There doesn't seem to be any tieflings.
That is a travesty, an injustice, sir, that I'm hoping gets fixed in this Second Age thing when we learn that tieflings existed, but then they died out. Yeah. Although, fun fact, if you'll notice the races that you just said there in your list of races, also the only playable races in first and second edition D&D.
Pretty much. They pretty much copied, right?
Yeah, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is built off Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. That's what it's built off of. It's like you're going to play, war games based in Tolkien's universe, and that's where D&D comes from. And there's a line like, so you have Tolkien made his creation, Lord of the Rings, and all that world, that universe, right? So then you have that begat D&D, right? And then people playing D&D then made computer games like Wizardry and stuff, right? In the early 80s. And that's where Wizardry is like the granddaddy of all Japanese role-playing games. That's where they all come from. Is everybody was trying to make their own version of Wizardry because everybody on a PC 88 in 84 Japan was buying these games like crazy. So like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, all that owes back to Tolkien, because it's like there was nothing really like that beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
That was so mainstream.
It was like fairy tales, and not what we have with Tolkien.
So yeah, I mean, if you can trace the line, but especially with D&D, I mean, it's straight up, the races and classes and stuff are all Lord of the Rings, like, especially in first and second edition.
Yeah. So I'm sure when the TV show comes out, we'll have to have another episode of this where we kind of talk about what we think about that.
So Diz, to bring it up.
Yes.
Feely and Keely died defending Thorin in the book.
Mm.
And then Thorin was killed or injured in the war and died later. But they have a list of how the rest of the dwarves went on and did whatever they were going to do.
Yeah, they even talk about it in the book how some of them escort Bilbo back to the Shire.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which ones it is, but some of them do, and they end up stopping by and checking out that troll cave on the way through.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what I don't get. Like, there's material that says, this is what this person did with the rest of their life, and then they died at this. Like we know that like Gimli had a town. He made a town, a dwarven town in the elf forest. And then Legolas went on to make a town of elves near the dwarves in that forest so that Gimli and Legolas could still be around each other.
Well, see, like in supposedly, you know, in the book, which this was not in the movie, Glowing tells Frodo the evening before this whole council they have with Elrond to form the Fellowship that Dwalin, Dory, Nori, Biffer, Buffer, and Bomba are still alive, living in the Lonely Mountain. You know, for Frodo, what did that even really mean? Because Bilbo's the one that knew all of them.
Yeah.
But Glowing is the one that's there telling him, which Gimli wouldn't really know much about this either, even though Gimli was alive. He was just a child. But why would Glowing tell Frodo things like that when he could have just told Bilbo?
No idea.
And they left all that out, which, I mean, I understand why, because it made no sense to add that into the movie that they were telling, because what did Frodo care? He didn't know any of those dwarfs.
True.
My favorite part of The Hobbit, though, is when Legolas pulls Glowing's locket off of him, opens it up, and he says, "What's this hideous creature?" And he said, "That's my son, Gimli."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, they had to add that because Legolas and Gimli start out hating each other's guts and then become like an inseparable force towards the end. But I was like, that was so added. Like, that would have never been in the book.
No. No.
This hideous creature. It's my son.
So, are you more of a Frodo or a Bilbo? Which way do you lean?
Did you say Frodo or dildo?
No. Bilbo.
Sorry, my hearing's going, chat. I'm getting old.
Probably Frodo. Just because, I guess, you know, it's like everything else. Your first James Bond is your favorite. So I was more introduced to Frodo and his adventure. I knew of Bilbo, of course, just from kind of osmosis from everybody around me. But, you know, Frodo was the first one I had an adventure with, basically watching the movies. So I like Frodo. Although he is a little... There's times where Frodo is Rodimus Prime.
I wasn't sure how he was going to say it, Diz, but I knew he was going that direction. I just wasn't sure who he was comparing it to.
Exactly. I'm sure there's some people in chat going, "What the frig are you talking about?"
Yeah, who the hell's Rodimus Prime?
But, like, you know, Frodo is supposed to be this... It's set up to be this big heroic character, right? And he gets this powerful artifact from the generation before him, the big important character from the generation before him. He goes around, and a lot of the time he's just kind of whining about it, you know. And yeah, he's had a hell of a journey and everything. I get that, but he's still kind of whining about it, like Rodimus Prime gets the Matrix leadership from Optimus Prime when he dies, and he's like, cool. At the end of the movie, like, yeah, he's gonna be kick ass. Because everybody's like, yeah. And then you watch the cartoon, and he's like, man, I want to be the leader of the Autobot. This sucks. I just want to drive fast. You know, so there's that.
Oh goodness.
That's my negative for Frodo.
You know, Diz, if I had to pick between those two,
yep,
I'd pick Bilbo. But if I had to pick a Hobbit, it'd be Sam.
Ooh, Sam.
Out of all of them, Sam is the most badass motherfucking Hobbit in existence.
Right? Isn't that the secret? Like everybody knows Frodo and Bilbo, right? And they're the two main characters. But really and truly, the hero of Lord of the Rings is kind of Sam.
I mean, when Frodo drops right outside of Mordor's pit of lava, Sam's like, I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you. Like he's done everything in his power to make sure Frodo gets where he's supposed to, and took all the shit and got beat down verbally and physically and everything else, and he's still the one standing at the end of it all.
I mean, probably Bilbo, but Merry and Pippin, to me, both of them have these interesting character arcs that I don't know if you really get the impact of it in the movie, but in the book it really kind of gets into it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like they start out as kids and they grow up.
They do, yeah. You get to see that with them.
Yeah.
While Frodo and Sam become an old couple together.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't think he knows about second breakfast.
Yeah. What about elevensies?
Elevensies?
And then an apple hits him in the head. Here. What? But you know, with all that, you know, when I made that reference earlier about Merry, you know, and Pippin about the Ent water, that they were the tallest hobbits in known creation. And Merry was taller than Pippin because when Pippin caught him and he started drinking it too, Merry didn't want to be outdone, so he kind of overdid it. And so he was like, I think the book said he was 3 or 4 inches taller than Pippin, but Pippin was still, you know, they were both towered over all the rest of the hobbits.
They were the shack of hobbits.
And, you know, after all that happened and they went back to the Shire and did everything, Merry and Pippin went back to their respected locations of who they swore allegiance to before the end of Return of the King.
Mm-hmm. They served before they came back, you know.
Like that, they stayed true to the Rohirrim and to Minas Tirith.
In the end, don't they get buried with Aragorn when Aragorn dies? They get buried with him or next to him.
It's like here's him and then here's them.
Yeah, on each side,
like right beside him.
Yeah. See, I know a little bit.
I mean, that's a hell of an honor to be buried with the king.
Yep, unless you're alive.
Unless you're in Egypt.
That's right. I was going to say, unless you're in Egypt.
Well,
you're like, I did it.
What about Vikings? That poor woman is singing until she burns to death. Tried to sing the Viking into Valhalla while the boat is burning around her.
Do you think she's singing It's Getting Hot in Here?
Probably let the motherfucker burn is probably what she's.
Maybe. All right, you guys got anything else, or are we ready to blow this popsicle stand?
I mean,
nope, nothing else.
I think that we'll just have to come back to, you know, like Diz said, after that show runs its conclusion, and we can come back and be like, either wow, that was amazing, but I didn't like this, or oh, that was garbage.
That's true.
So we may have to revisit this topic just a little bit after the fact.
It would be really good, or everybody will be like, "Well, welcome to the suck."
Right?
Yeah. And maybe you'll have Stephen Colbert on that episode. So-
Maybe. I mean, I'll invite him.
I mean, if he shows
We'll
up,
see.
we made it big.
We'll see what happens, right?
And he can ask any question he wants.
Well, he knows all the answers.
It's true.
Well, he can run the show then.
I'm fine with that. That's fine.
And I'll just sit here and nod
Yeah.
or shake my head.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
That's
sir.
right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Colbert. We'll call it the Three Old Men Rapport.
Sounds like a winner.
Oh, I like it.
Well, we'll be doing this 2 weeks from now. Next Thursday, we'll have After the Roll because we have D&D on Saturday. So if you like D&D, come check us out Saturday, 8 p.m. over on my channel, twitch.tv/DrDizDM.
Come
And
see
then
if we all died to all of his tricks.
True.
That's true.
They're going through a gauntlet of such, so we'll see what happens. Monday we always have retro at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Me and Clan do that, so I guess we're in between Zelda games at the moment, so who knows what we'll play.
That's true. It is untelling.
I'm going to play a card forces this to play Majora's Mask.
That is the next game we're supposed to play. Yes.
Yep.
Is Majora's Mask.
We're gonna play that. We were gonna play some filler games in between. We like to play some little off the wall things, just for some fun.
You can
But-
play Kirby for Game Boy.
Yeah,
The original
always.
The
Every time I
original
play
suck.
Kirby, yeah, it actually sucks and blows at the same time.
That's true. Much like Mega made from Spaceballs.
My name's Barf.
All right, Clan.
God, we tell our age too many times on this show.
That's true. Well, literally, the show is called Three Old Men.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we really tell our age sometimes without even saying the number.
Listen, chat. If you're familiar with Dirt, we're older than that. We remember when Dirt was new.
Remember when asphalt first got laid?
I remember ass. Ass was a hawk. And with that, just got one thing to tell you. You and you damn kids get off my lawn.
See you guys next time.
Everybody.